Constructive Voices, the podcast for the construction people, with news, views and expert interviews.
Hi, I'm Steve Randall and welcome to another of our special podcast episodes featuring the many people that Peter Finn, Pete the Builder and I spoke to at the Footprint Plus event at the start of June. We learned a lot and discovered some fascinating work that's going on to ensure that the construction industry is part of the greener, more sustainable world that we need as we drive towards carbon net zero. If you can't wait to catch up with all our guests from Footprint Plus, have a listen to our online radio stream where you can hear them all. Just visit constructive-voices.com, don't forget the dash, or ask Alexa to launch Constructive Voices. However you listen, with Constructive Voices, the conversation is building.
Constructive Voices media partner in Ireland and the United Kingdom is Construction Industry News. Since 2002, Construction Industry News has been focused on the very latest projects and developments within the UK and Ireland.
My name's Jason Horner. I'm from Hilson Moran. We're an environmental engineering and design practice. We develop buildings, places, smart infrastructure and environments that meet our net environmentally positive future goals. As well as designing sports stadia across the world, some of the more iconic buildings in London and some of the major regeneration projects in the UK. We develop tools in-house, we have research and development, and we look at healthy cities, healthy places, and places that people want to work, live, and I guess play, if that's not too corny.
I think it's fair to say that the drive towards constructing buildings now in an environmental way is now a proper action. People have stopped talking about it and they're starting to really take action now. Is that fair to say? And would you like to develop that subject in any way?
Yes, absolutely. We've seen a lot of change happen in the last 3 years particularly. And the sustainability consultants, the things we do, the environmental engineers, are at the center of the conversation because everybody needs to understand what they need to do to decarbonize, to reduce impact on environment. And the conversations haven't been more interesting than they are now. And I've been doing this for 20 years. There's a lot more collaboration in the industry between peers and between competitors, what we would have historically, the people we would have historically been competing with are now sitting in the room, and we're working on this together, and we're pulling groups together to collaborate and drive change faster because that's what's needed.
Yeah, and it's great to hear that a change is happening now. Obviously, a lot more work to do.
For me personally, I'm more focused on existing stock, which, as we all know, by 2050, it is anticipated that 70% of building will be existing stock. So it's not just about, new builds. It's more also about the sort of collaboration between landlords and tenants, and how do we get that right from a leasing perspective? Because if you want to consider net zero and how do we get there, it's, a major part of that is trying to understand where we are across the sort of industry, and the typology of assets makes a big difference, and the tenancy schedules, and when there would be an opportunity to make any interventions in that respect as well. I think it's quite important.
Excellent stuff. James, do you want to come in there?
Yeah, just to add to what Alan said, quite rightly, I suppose I have the easier job. I design new places, new homes, future places. I don't have the job of retrofitting existing buildings, existing homes. Some people refer to it as the 27 million white elephants, which is the 27 million existing homes, which are leaky and generally not well designed. Now, do we throw heat pumps at them? No, that's not the right answer. Can we put hydrogen in the gas grid? No, not really. We can't do that. So, it needs some careful thought. And as Alan rightly said, it's an ownership issue. It's a governance issue. The owners, are the people that live and work in the buildings, aren't the owners of the buildings, and it's bringing everybody together to work jointly and collaboratively. The investors are quite important too.
Yeah, so we've got a huge retrofit project, globally as well as in the country here, because as we all know, the most sustainable building is a building that's already built in terms of, you don't have as big a carbon footprint. That's a huge issue, and I think we need to develop on that.
Yes, absolutely. The embodied carbon is what we call it. The carbon in the building's fabric and the building systems is something that has been largely ignored until 2 years ago. And there isn't anything regulating it or setting any caps on how much we can emit within our carbon budget to limit basically climate catastrophe, to avoid climate catastrophe. So there's a lot of missing information out there. As a business, we've written a carbon manifesto 2 years ago, and part of our role isn't only to provide a service, a consultancy service at various stages of built environment life cycle, but it's also to educate, to raise awareness, and we've been doing that quite actively. We've been involved in things like organisations like CLETI, the UK GBC, public sector organisations, and various, and we've been influencing and writing policy. One was only published yesterday about embodied carbon specifically, to aid the City of London to make decisions and to help applications become a little bit more considerate to embodied carbon. It's all happening, and it's all about, and it's quite a fast changing. In fact, referring to Footprint as an event, actually, I remember in 2020, Emily Day called me, and it was on the back of a presentation that Jason and I had done in her office, and she was impressed by how clear we spoke about energy and carbon at that time. That's what we were in for, and she really wanted, and this is that wish come true, to bring people together to solve it together, rather than people being fragmented and writing their own thing on the side and coming up with their own solutions. And this is exactly what this is intending to be. And the experts and the people who can drive and make change are here for these 3 days, and it's fantastic to see it come into fruition.
Absolutely, and there's so many people networking here in front of our eyes. It's great to see people who've done so much research, maybe in their own facet of construction, getting to speak to somebody else who's done something similar, but probably in a slightly different area. Sorry, James, you wanted to come in there?
Yeah, I was going to add to what Marie-Louise was saying there in terms of the people that are here. It's not just, it's the people that can make the change, the positive change. It's the supply chain that's here. We have the investors that are putting the money into new buildings, new places, future places. We have the developers that are going to develop. We have the architects. We have the engineers, the environmental engineers, and we have the planning policy officers, the local authorities, and the people that need to put together the strategic plans that make this happen. We have some of the suppliers as well. So to talk here, amongst pretty much anybody that you find, there is connectivity. There is something to talk about. Clearly, we're going to talk about our aspiration to be net zero carbon at 2050. In a lot of cases, we talk to the GLA, it's 2030, and different regions have their own plans. But everybody here has got one aim, and it's very open and it's very chatty.
To add to what Jason and Marie-Louise said, I think it's been a great event from the point of view that we've also had asset managers in presenting and giving their opinions, and it's quite refreshing to see that they're starting to understand more that we need to sort of design for performance and not just for compliance. So we've had talks where asset managers have emphasized the importance of data and continuous monitoring of energy performance and so on. So that's been quite refreshing.
That's Jason, Marie-Louise and Alan from Hilson Moran.
From the Footprint Plus event in Brighton, UK, to the global construction industry.
This is Constructive Voices.
So I'm here now with John Macdonald-Brown.
I come from a commercial real estate background many years ago, and I set up Syzygy as a renewable energy consultancy to help real estate companies deploy as much renewable energy as possible, but to unlock the difficulties associated with the commercial real estate world. One of our kind of straplines in the early days was providing landlords with an accessible route to renewable energy.
Very good, very good. So I heard a good bit of your talk there as well. A lot of it was, it was basically based around solar. So solar has been around for a long time. The technology within it has advanced dramatically. Let's discuss that a little bit, and what are your thoughts? I know there's no one fix-all kind of solution out there, but how strong of a role is solar going to play going forward?
I think, well, particularly in the real estate world, if we're focusing on that, in the construction side of things, huge. Because you're using space that wouldn't be used for something else, whether that's in the car park and carports or it's on the roof. So you're using valueless space. It's also incredibly flexible as a product. We can talk about development pipeline of new technologies, but fundamentally, it's incredibly flexible. So it's technically it's modular, but commercially it's great because it's pretty. Whether it's old panels or new panels, you can forecast pretty well what you're going to get out of the system. So people can invest in it having a very good idea of what the commercials look like. But in terms of, what's really exciting and something that you're never going to be at the forefront of knowing everything that's going on in the market at any time. It's a fascinating industry where there's every day you're reading about new technologies being developed. I've read over the years about loads of silver bullets that have never quite materialised. Efficiencies of, now we're talking, what was 190 watts in 2010 is now 370 watts. So efficiencies have doubled in 10 years and are continuing. And the other thing is, particularly on larger buildings, the decarbonising impact, if you like, even just on a net basis. You use 1 kilowatt, you generate 1 kilowatt. On a lot of logistics buildings and big industrial buildings where you've got bigger roofs, you're generating more power than is used across a year in some of these. So it's probably the biggest single contributor. And sadly, onshore wind, and we'd love to see that back. It was killed really by the government policy 8 or 9 years ago. But in the built environment, solar is really the number one technology. And I don't see that changing.
Very good. Very interesting to hear that. And being at an event like Footprint Plus, you get to speak to a lot of very similar-minded people and a lot of positivity within the tent, which is great. I suppose, is it fair to say that we've moved from the talking stage into some action, but maybe the action hasn't got the momentum it needs yet? What's your thoughts on where we are in this battle and where are we going to end up? Are we going to meet our targets?
That's a really good point. And you go to these events and they're full of like-minded people. So as you say, there's always lots of positivity. The real world is another place, right? And I went to COP and everyone's really buzzed, but you walk out the door and it's same old, same old. I think there is definitely a recognition that the talking has to stop. And I think to an extent, the talking, in the real estate world, commercially, certainly the talking has stopped, and now everyone is in an unseemly hurry to get things done. But that's coinciding with grid constraints and all these sorts of things that had they moved a little bit earlier, they wouldn't have encountered these problems. So, and as a business, whilst we do advise clients on strategy, really the strategic advice we give is all leading towards doing real things. I've always been much more interested in the practical side and something you can see, feel, touch. And so we're at that kind of delivery end. And look, if we're any kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? Example, our business doubled last year, and I think it will almost double again this year, and that's just through demand from existing clients. So definitely the talking is stopping, but in other sectors I don't think it is. But in the real estate sector, I think it definitely is.
Well, that's good to hear. Final question then. That was a long answer, but it was a good one. So electrification seems to be what the answer that a lot of people are kind of going towards. We have issues with the grid, but yet we have a large push towards electric cars, electric vehicles, even talk of commercial vehicles going electric, which I think is going to take a bit longer, but it's certainly going in that direction. What's your thoughts on that being on the inside? Would you say that the transition to that is going to be possible, and how long will it take for us realistically to get to that stage?
Well, the last part of your question is really difficult to answer. I don't know how long it will take, but the electrification is happening whether we like it or not. I mean, I think that what's not to like about it, right? Because what we're really doing is taking out gas and reducing the amount of petrol and diesel that people use. So that's all good, right? We do a lot of work in electric vehicle charging infrastructure, and I have an electric car myself. And it took me 8 hours to get back from Cornwall last week from half term. So I think we're still, there are 1 million EVs on the road now. So the growth is phenomenal. The infrastructure is not catching up. And I think, that is there's going to be a bit of a crunch point. So electrification is happening. It has a big impact on the load. But what's interesting, when you think about when power is produced, whether it's wind, solar, nuclear is obviously a base load power. When you think about what we use as a nation today, obviously less at night, more during the day, and peak in the afternoons. If all that generation could run, and you can't run wind turbines 24 hours a day, but there's enough capacity already, with what's in the pipeline, so built and to be built, consented capacity. There's enough capacity to deliver what we need. The question is about how you move that power around, right? So what I think will be really interesting is, and people like Octopus have got these smart tariffs where there are times of the day where you get paid to take power. So people will, cars will be able to, something like 75% they reckon of this electrification, certainly in the fleet, cars will happen at home. I don't have any charging at home. I thought I'd do it the hard way, but you've got to walk the walk, right? But of course, a lot of that's going to be at night. So I think we'll see a big load shift towards night. So I don't think there's any question that we'll get there. But battery storage is going to be a huge part of that. And the question is, what technology is the right technology? Hydrogen. Love hydrogen, but it's incredibly energy intensive to make. But we could talk all day about wind turbines shutting down when it's windy and what you do with that power. So we'll see. I'm sure we'll see a lot more of that in the future. But how long it will take? Well, what is it? The government is saying 2030 for no more new registrations of diesel and petrol cars. And we've looked at this is probably a little bit boring, but if you look at our car fleet, it's kind of topped out at about 32 minutes, probably going to come down with car sharing, and young people are not driving. Young people in London, loads of them don't have cars, whereas we all had them when we were 17, 18. It's the first thing we wanted. So I think we'll see that come down. But we reckon there'll be 8 to 10 million cars in, what are we now, 8 years' time? So 10 times what we've got. So we're well on the way. But that will only be about 30% of the fleet. So there's still, how long will it take? I think it will take till 2050 to get that flush through the system, if you like.
Yeah. Listen, thank you very much for your time, John. Really interesting stuff there, and I find it very intriguing because it affects me. I'm a main contractor in Ireland. I see, transition happening, but it's taken a long time. People's domestic homes are definitely becoming more energy efficient, and solar is a big part of it. People are a lot more aware, but we've a long road ahead. But I think we are kind of going in the right direction, and people, given the input that you can give as well, is great to see. So, John Macdonald-Brown. Oh, I nearly got that one wrong. Yeah. Irish mother, Scottish father, and living in England. He's covering all corners. Listen, thanks very much, John.
Thank you, Peter. Cheers.
This is Constructive Voices.
I am Kelly. I'm a structural engineer. I work for Whitby Wood, running a team there, where we mainly do refurbishment projects, extending existing buildings with mass timber. I've done that for 16 years now, and I'm also on the board of directors for Timber Development UK, which are sort of a conglomeration of specifiers and tradespeople coming together to try and provide all the right information you need to design timber buildings to students and industry.
Yeah, great to hear. I come from a timber background myself as well. I'm a carpenter by trade, and then I'm a main contractor now as well. So I can clearly see the benefits of using timber in construction, and it's great to see that it's now starting to be used in mass construction also as well. So do you want to develop that a little bit further about maybe upcoming projects you've got going on and where you see the future of that type of construction?
Yeah, absolutely. I started working with mass timber a long time ago, but mainly on sort of small scale schools, nurseries, churches, leisure buildings, those types of things. Really fell in love with it in the same way as you did as a carpenter, I'm sure. Like, it's a clean site, it's easy, it's nice for me to go and inspect. You can screw into it easily, there's no dust, there's no, annoyance to people around. And then as, my career developed, I started becoming more open to the commercial world. And then we were really thinking, why can't we use engineered timber on office buildings? And started doing that with simple sort of single-story roof extensions, but then getting bigger and bigger to the point where we've added 4 stories on top of a 3-story building, 6 stories all around the edge, huge glulam and CLT frame. On one building, and then now I'm mainly working on similar projects like that, looking at where we can do that and what the opportunities are in and around the country for those extensions.
Great stuff, great to hear. So being at Footprint Plus obviously has a lot of similar-minded people under the same roof. I'm sure you've had the chance to discuss lots of different subjects with lots of different people. How has it been being at an event like this with such a focus on the sustainability issue in particular?
Oh, it's fantastic. I mean, it's really nice to have all the conversations. That's the most important thing about this event, I think, is the conversations you have with people. And when there's so many like-minded people together, you can really push forward and have new ideas, and you're not really explaining yourself or reinventing the wheel every time. You're actually moving forwards. And what we need to do is have these conferences and have new ideas and move things forward, but then at the same time educate those who aren't in the same space at the moment, but need to get there because we've all got the law to get to zero by 2050. So everyone needs to get there eventually, and I think it's really important that we have this space to be able to do that and start the process going.
Great stuff. So final question, are we going to get there, and are we moving fast enough in that direction?
Ooh, what a question. I am optimistic. Yes, we will get there. We have to, right? What are we going to do otherwise?
We've no choice. We absolutely have to get there. So what can we do, or are we doing enough to get the momentum behind, the positivity that we have here at the moment? And I've said this to several people, I think we have moved from the talking stage into seeing some action. We've seen some projects that have been completed that are, properly recorded in terms of their carbon emissions and massively, reductions in the carbon emissions. Are we going to see more of that and quickly enough, in your opinion?
I think it's moving really slowly at the moment. It needs to be quicker. There needs to be regulation for it to make it move quicker, but also the market's the incentive at the end of the day. The money is what makes things happen. So as soon as, the funding is coming from an ESG funder, or you have to offset any carbon in your project, that's going to drive the change more probably than even regulation. So I think things are changing, and I think there's going to be huge movements in the next couple of years that will be in a completely different climate again. Pardon the pun, in 2 years' time, as we were 2 years ago as well. And we've seen huge change through the pandemic and how that can happen. So why can't it happen for climate change as well?
Well, thank you very much for your time, Kelly. It was lovely to talk to you, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you very much.
From the Footprint Plus event in Brighton, UK, to the global construction industry.
This is Constructive Voices.
I'm Ken Hunnisett. I'm from Point Investment Management. I'm here with 2 hats today, both of them related to district heating. As an investment manager, we're super excited about the prospect of a growing market and the ability to invest our own client funds. But we're also partnering with a government department. We partner with BEIS, delivering 2 schemes for them. The Heat Network Investment Project, which is a £320 million 3-year scheme which closed earlier this year, and its successor fund, which is just launched, which is the Green Heat Network Fund, which is going to see £288 million invested in public, private and third sector-led projects here in England. That scheme's only just started, so the opportunity to come down and address an audience of property developers is super exciting.
Well done. Some obviously fantastic contracts you're after getting done there. That's amazing to hear. And obviously the ripple effect of that is that it's going to be done in a sustainable way, and therefore, we're going to start seeing the benefits of that coming down the line. So, I suppose it's the one thing about coming to Footprint Plus here was, it's something that I probably wouldn't have thought about before, is how being sustainable in our heating network, could have such a positive benefit. So do you want to develop that a little bit further?
Yeah, definitely. Look, it's one of the toughest nuts to crack on our path to net zero. It's a number that's often used, but it's something like 37% of our greenhouse gas emissions here in the UK come from the way we heat our homes, our workplaces, and the way we heat industry. So it's awesome that we've got this great renewable sector now. We lead the world in offshore wind. We haven't cracked transportation yet at all, but we're well on the way. Heating's difficult. Heating's really hard, and district heating in particular has been at the periphery of an argument now for a little while. There's been lots of conversations about electrification. There's been lots of ambitions and conversations about the role hydrogen will play in the future, and undoubtedly they both will in the future. But the great thing about district heating is the bit of the solution we can be getting on with today. And district heating is its very best when it's using either renewable sources of heat primarily or waste heat. So to capture the energy from a fast-flowing river going through the middle of a city and use a heat pump to take that into homes and businesses is super exciting. In my presentation, I mentioned a scheme just down the road in Worthing, where in the town centre they're drawing heat from the warm water in the sewer network. It's so very cool. There's a lot of tragic things going on around the world at the moment. One thing that's told us, I think, louder than ever is that we've got to reduce our reliance on gas generally, for the driver to net zero, absolutely, but for domestic resilience and just to arrest the galloping cost of living. So to take advantage of these amazing natural resources, waste heat, as I say, from energy from waste, or the waste heat from data centers that we're building. It's really cool. It's not blue sky technology. It's here today. We can be doing it. We should be doing it. It's going to take a lot of money. Government's putting their money where their mouth is, mercifully. Businesses like my own need to step up. And that's going to be a lot easier when regulation arrives. And the theme of our conversation today was the role regulation will play. We're an unregulated industry at the moment. That's changing in pretty short order. We've got an experienced regulator in Ofgem been appointed. Hopefully we're going to start to see the fruit of their labours from about 2024 onwards. When that happens, I think the world changes. That probably creates an environment that can unlock the kind of levels of institutional investment that are going to be needed to really make this sector sail. The Heat Network Industry Council, I think it was, that they put a figure of 80 billion against the amount of investment that could be needed if the heat network sector is going to fulfill its potential in the UK. That can't be afforded by public funds. That needs to be from institutions, of course, a little bit from government to stimulate market, but in the long run, the private sector needs to step up. I think regulation's absolutely key to that.
Fantastic stuff. Jesus, so interesting to hear all what you're saying there. But it sounds achievable, and I think the one thing that I'm taking out today is there's so many people thinking along the same lines, and it's not, as you said there, it's not a blue sky kind of thought here. This is business people thinking about doing the right thing, but doing it in a way that works economically and is sustainable. So I suppose coming to an event like Footprint Plus is a very unique one, because it's not just people showcasing what they have, it's networking and it's talking to other like-minded people. How have you found that?
Oh, I've absolutely loved it. So it's a different group, really. And it's a group that could be forgiven for having some resistance to new technology. It's the easy option now is to install gas boilers. One of my great concerns isn't right, reservations about some of the conversation we've been having in the heat network community, because it's full of people who are super excited about the sector, but it can be a little bit of echo chamber. When vanguards talk to other vanguards, you can soon convince yourself that the job's done here and we've swayed public opinion. Actually, we need to kind of break down those walls a little bit and socialize and network in different groups and different organizations. And it's conference season. There's a lot going on at the moment, but this was the one I was most excited about because this was going to introduce us to a whole new world. And actually, far from get resistance, it was really well attended. It was attended in a way that a conversation about regulation has no business being. And the questions from an informed audience were really quite insightful and really telling. It makes me think we haven't got to win hearts and minds here. Everyone gets it. Everyone's bought off on the idea that we've got to decarbonise our buildings. Super excited. I'm already looking forward to next year.
Fantastic. So just final question. Are we going in the right direction? I think, you've nearly answered my question already, but, am I right in saying a lot of work done, more to do? And how far down this road are we?
Yeah, more to do and sooner, right? I mean, 2050 seems an awful long way away, but I'm a child of the 80s and 90s, and I look back, if Blur Oasis is 1993, that feels like yesterday. That's how much time I've got until 2050, right? So we've really got to get cracking now. We've got to continue to explore new technologies, new ideas, of course. But we've got to start decarbonising, and we've got to start taking action in the areas we can take action on. That's why I love heat networks. It's not a technology of the future, it's one of today. They're going to get better over time, of course. But yeah, we've really got to pull our finger out. We've really got to get motoring. Events like this that pull everyone together are amazing. At some point, we've got to stop talking, though, and actually start doing.
Fantastic. Thank you very much for your time, Ken. Really interesting stuff. Pleasure to meet you.
Constructive Voices.
My name is Lee Golby. I'm Head of Sustainability at a company called Paul Rose in Manhattan. We're a kitchen manufacturer just along the road in Lansing on the south coast. Just came here today to see what was what, really, see how we can help the industry progress with its sustainability goals.
Excellent stuff. Well, you're a man after my own heart, Lee. I'm a carpenter by trade, and also I'm a main contractor, so I based in Dublin. I do a lot of construction on domestic and a bit of development as well. So it's great to see a company like yourselves having the interest to come to an event like this. A lot of the people that are here are professionals, architects, engineers, from all aspects of construction. But it's great to see someone from a kitchen company that is has the foresight, and the company has the foresight, send somebody here to address the issues as well. So what have you seen so far here at Footprint Plus?
It's really interesting to see the BREEAM presentation on ESG, so environment, social and governance data collection. I think that's something that's really useful for us going forward, and benchmarking. Also the off-site construction, something really, really interesting. Personally, I think that's probably the future of construction as we know it. A lot more control, factory conditions, don't have to worry about the weather or plasterers turning up.
Absolutely, and it might sound a bit corny here, but kitchen makers have been the masters of off-site construction since God knows when, because a lot of your work is done off-site. You arrive on site then, and you fit the finished product. So doing that in modular construction on a larger scale is pretty much taking that concept and just upscaling it. Would I be right in saying that? And again, just give us a couple of the advantages of doing that type of construction.
Yeah, to a certain degree. I mean, I think the biggest advantage is the repeatability and the quality control. So it's all done in a factory-controlled environment. Also, then you've got the carbon aspect. It's a lot easier to measure the embodied carbon that's going into that unit, be it a kitchen or a segment of a house. And then you've got the control over the delivery. You don't have multiple trades going to site. Trying to capture all the the carbon emissions from that would be an absolute nightmare, I'd imagine.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're here today. There's so many different people from all different areas of construction, as I said earlier. I've got to see and listen to people who've worked in all timber construction, then modular construction, and then very large scale construction as well. So everybody here is of a similar mind in terms of we understand the need to go to net zero, the need to carry on the good fight again, and sustainability is such a huge part of that now. So your boots on the ground understanding of are companies taking this serious now? And are they being forced to take it serious, or is it just a change of basically mentality?
I think from our perspective, we're seeing much more attention being paid on sustainability, particularly with some of the bigger construction companies, like the Barclays, Canary Wharf contractors of this world. They're really taking it seriously, and within the housing associations as well, a lot of our tenders are driven by our social aspects of what we do, climate, carbon, all sorts of things, not just the general quality, health and safety, which it was tended to be. So sustainability is much higher priority, I think, for a lot of our customers now.
Good stuff. So final question, any exciting projects coming up, and any sort of developments in the industry that you can see coming?
From us personally, our main focus is on decarbonisation of our fleet. We've got to the point now where our Scope 1 and 2, Scope 2 emissions are zero, our Scope 1 production emissions are now zero, but our challenge is our Scope 1 transport. Obviously, so with the use of things like HVO, so hydrogenated vegetable oil, running that in our fleet, we aim to reduce our transport emissions by about 90%. Also need to put some solar on the roof of our factory to offset the massive energy price increase.
Well, listen, Lee, thanks very much for your time. It certainly warms my heart to see that, people of all levels are taking this seriously, and, it's clear to see from speaking to yourself that, the company that you're with, do you mind giving me the name of the company again?
It's Paula Rosa Manhattan.
You're very clearly putting a lot of thought and going in the right direction with this, and keep up all the good work, and very nice to meet you.
From the Footprint Plus event in Brighton, UK, to the global construction industry.
This is Constructive Voices.
So now I'm here with Mike Reynolds, the Managing Director of Vattenfall.
Swedish energy company, a bit of a best kept secret in the UK, but we set up a few years ago to deliver large-scale district heating. We come along and we work with all of these good people in this room, these property investors and developers and property owners, and we help them work out how to tackle that prickly 33% of their carbon emissions that come from property portfolios. So we look at the heating in the buildings. We install big district heating networks that take heat from waste heat sources around cities, deliver it to the building, decarbonise the heat, and do it in the most cost-effective way possible. I've been going for about 4 years now, and this is my first Footprint Plus event. Very excited by it.
Excellent stuff. So, coming from that background, it must be great to be here in a room, a tent that has so many, similar-minded people here, and I suppose a focus not only on sustainability but also on construction, because everybody that's here is a construction person, including ourselves. So, what's it like to be here and to get to network with people?
Yeah, there's a good buzz actually. One of the interesting things about this event is it seems to have successfully got together people from different parts of the problem, to put it that way. So we've got investors, we've got consultants, we've got construction businesses, we've got property companies and owners, we've got people like me from energy companies, all looking at the problem but looking at it from a different angle. And I've already had 5-6 conversations with people which have been really opening my mind, hopefully opening their minds, and looking at it from a different point of view. Decarbonising buildings is not easy, but it's very much easier if you speak to other people that are doing something similar, understand what they're doing and work together, and that's kind of why we're here.
Excellent stuff. And just while we're here, last question, is there anything that you think should be worked a little bit more on? I think it's fair to say that we have made some steps in the right direction. I think it's also fair to say more needs to be done. And we're moving in the right direction, but we need momentum and we need a bit of a push. Is there anything you'd like to develop on that?
Yeah, the big thing for me in terms of momentum is that we need to look at actually the construction side. I think what you're seeing here is a lot of people with intentions who have got a lot of money, a lot of intent to invest, but the biggest challenge is going to be the supply chain. It's going to be the hundreds of thousands of construction workers up and down the country that need to be reskilled to do some of the low-tech work that we're looking at. It's the operating models of some of the businesses that work in the sector. And I think getting a bigger voice from the supply chain will be something I think we should look at for the future, and making sure that, the realities of managing and rolling out some of these big infrastructure that we're talking about for decarbonisation is going to be important. So getting Kia here, getting Skanska here, those kind of guys, I'm really interested to see what they would think. Sitting in a room next to me and next to an investor from a bank, for example.
Yeah, excellent stuff. Listen, thanks very much for your time.
This is Constructive Voices.
My name is Mitakshi, also known as Me Too, and I lead the sustainability team at Will & Partners. We're a multidisciplinary design team, and we try and be sustainable in everything that we do. And what I do is make sure that everyone is trying to be sustainable within all the projects that we work with.
Very good. Great to hear that you have that kind of train of thought, and obviously your principles are obviously in the right direction. What type of projects are you involved in? Sort of what have you brought into the company to make them more sustainable?
So we're a multidisciplinary design team. We have design directors who worked in pretty much all of the different types of design industries. We have tall, high-rise buildings to housing and workplace design, workplace consultancy and sustainability. So pretty much all over the board. And in terms of your second question, which is sustainability, I have a pretty extensive sustainability background. Even though I was trained as an architect, I've worked as a sustainability consultant for a very long time now. I also chair the sustainability committee at Coronet UK in an effort to bring the sustainability conversation to the forefront in business and corporate real estate circles. So yeah, that's my contribution towards sustainability.
Excellent stuff. So being at an event like Footprint Plus gives you the opportunity to speak to a lot of very like-minded people, and again, I suppose what it gives you the opportunity to do is you get to speak to people from so many different areas of construction. And that's the one thing that I found here, that I'm getting to speak to people who I never probably would have had the opportunity to speak to before, in terms of maybe the level they are in their company, but also what their company does, what area of construction they're in. So have you found that about today and about the event in general?
Yes, definitely. The ability to speak to different people that you wouldn't speak on a daily basis makes a lot of difference to opening your mind to different solutions that you can go out there and offer to people as well. And I think I really enjoyed hearing about all the disruptive sort of carbon innovations within our industry that we can integrate within our design solutions. And I'm really looking forward to going out there and collaborating with all of these people once we're done with the conference.
Yeah, because I think that's what will happen. And again, I've heard that from so many other people that I've spoken to today, that the connections they've made and the collaborations that they feel are going to come out of this is such a hugely positive element to an event like this. But I do think that this event is quite unique in that the players that are here are at all levels, in terms of, you've got county councils, you've got developers, you have professional teams in terms of architects, engineers, technical guys. So it's a very much a mixed element of people. So what do you think you will get out of this now, and who are you hoping to collaborate with going forward?
I'm always open to collaborate with everyone. I think that's what makes this space very unique at this point. We always tend to have conferences where you get siloed within different parts, and you speak in a lot of detail about those topics. But in this case, we just have a variety of people, and I think that makes a lot of difference, because that gives insight. For example, I have had conversations with a developer, an asset manager, a marketing professional, and an architect, and many other people like me who want to collaborate and create an integrated solution within an industry that tends to silo people as well. And once we start talking, we're going to come up with solutions that will help us to address this big problem that we have at the moment, which is reducing carbon, and with the intensity of carbon that our industry emits. So it should. Hopefully, it will help us do much better everything that we've been doing so far.
So, final question, and it's relative to what you just said. Are we doing enough? And will we meet the targets that we need to meet to win this battle to get to carbon net zero?
We might win a few battles. I wouldn't like to say whether or not we would win the war. It is a difficult question, definitely. And I think that it's very encouraging to see so many people come together to want to be a part of that fight. And all I can say is that if we keep doing what we are doing here, then there should be no reason that we will do very well. Whether we're doing enough or whether we're going to do enough is up to not just us, but also the rest of the world to come together to help. So it's a really difficult question to answer, but that's the best I can say at the moment.
Well, thank you very much for your time. It was really interesting to talk to you and to get your perspective on things.
Thanks for having me.
Constructive Voices.
Live at Footprint Plus.
Okay, so we haven't been here that long. We've only been here half a day, but already I think I have the award for the strangest location for doing an interview. I'm on a swing, and there's a guy sitting next to me who's also on a swing, who can probably explain why, because I don't know.
We are currently sat on a swing which was made by Marie-Louise Schembri, who is a long-time friend of the company that I work for, U&I, and she kindly donated a whole load of artwork for us to use at the festival today. So our stand is completely reused from other events and things that we've been at. So we haven't produced anything brand new today that's printed or here. We wanted to try and stay true to the ethos of the event. So we brought some furniture from our office and brought lots of colour and lots of enthusiasm, and we've got digital brochures, so if people do want a brochure, because the property industry loves a brochure, they can get it. But yeah, we've tried to go bright and bold, and yeah, we're currently swinging, looking at the sea, the bar's in front of us, and everyone's having quite a nice time.
Yeah, happy days. What's your name, sir?
My name's Sam Jarrett, and I am the head of marketing and comms for U&I.
Okay, so I mean, this is a great event because it's bringing together people from all different parts of the construction industry and the wider sort of sustainability piece. I mean, you've got quite a striking stand here, as you sort of given people an idea of the colour and the fact that this is a swing that we're on, which is brilliant. What have people been saying to you? What's been the sort of vibe for you so far at the event?
I think a lot of people are here to learn, if I'm completely honest. I think we come here with our PPP credentials. So PPP is public-private partnership. So we've worked on two big schemes in Brighton called Circus Street and Preston Barracks, which are partnerships with the local authority, so Brighton Hove City Council and the University of Brighton, and we're here to meet other local authorities, to do a few more around the UK. So that's why we're here. I think other people are here, for various reasons. I've seen people selling sofas and mattresses. I've seen our architects, so it's a real mixed crowd actually. I think this has actually found itself quite a nice niche in the property calendar. It's really lovely to have a event which is for a bigger thing than just meeting people. This has got a real lovely ethos and inspiration behind it, and I think it's going to just explode from there really.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the important thing, and you could sort of say, well, how does what we're doing now fit into Constructive Voices, because we're all about the construction sector, but actually the way things are moving, and I've talked to other people here today who are saying that development and the way that towns and cities and individual projects, whether they're housing or commercial structures, it's all now far more than just about the building. It's about everything that's around, and it's about how that's built, what it's built from, and the whole sustainability thing is so important.
Yeah, and I think it's about sharing your skills and experience with the world, really. We've got our man Mike Harrison here, who's just coming off stage now, actually, who's been talking about a new material called concretine, which is a hybrid between concrete and graphene. And we did the world's first commercial pour at our site in Manchester called Mayfield, which has actually been used as a roller disco, believe it or not. But it's beyond roller disco. This is about a brand new material that is cheaper to produce, better for the environment, and quicker. So it's like, you can't beat that, can you? And it's about telling everybody else that they should do a bit of that as well. And not because it, helps us, helps everybody. And it was actually pioneered in Manchester as well with the university. So we're sort of here spreading the word about that as well.
Well, I think what you've hit on there is a really important point, that actually it's about having those conversation starters. It's about getting people talking about the possibilities, because we can all sit around and say, we've got this huge issue that we need to deal with, this climate emergency. I don't know what to do. But actually, once you start having the conversations, there are people with the answers here.
Yeah, and hopefully action afterwards. And I think that's the bit that, the event organisers have done a great job filling the room with the right people. And then it's up to us to learn and take it away and actually do something. So hopefully next year there'll be people stood up saying, right, we listened to what we learned and did it.
And you, relative to me, and a lot of people who may be listening to this, who are construction industry executives, for example, who may be, older in years, shall we say. You're a young guy. How important is this whole thing of the global climate emergency and sustainability to you and your peers? Yeah,
absolutely. It's driving loads of decision-making processes, right from which coffee shops we choose to go and drink our coffee in, right through to the companies that we choose to go and work for, and it is a huge issue. It's a huge motivation in the things that we choose to buy and associate ourselves with. But I also think that it's not just our generation. It's various generations. I think this is a human issue, and I think genuinely everybody here today is obviously silently agreeing that we need to do something about it. The decisions we're making, even in our jobs, are motivated by it. We've brought no tote bags to this event because we think, I've seen a few knocking around actually. We had a big debate about it. Tote bags at an event, surely you have to take a load of tote bags, but we are making conscious decisions right now. We've minimised all of our print, which we're making better decisions than we used to. I think the industry is sadly a little bit behind others in terms of the speed at which we're adopting change, but we're slowly getting there. I think the pandemic has sped up our transition into digital as well, massively. It's a huge issue for us.
And how important is it that, you mentioned private-public partnerships, how important is it that the private and public sectors engage in this way?
Absolutely. I think the main thing between those two relationships are we each bring something to the table and we must listen to each other to then deliver it. So in Brighton, we listened to what the council wanted. They wanted a new facility for South East Dance, so we built them a theatre and a studio space. It's not I don't think you'll speak to anybody else here who's done that, but we did it. And in Preston Barracks, we're putting up public art, not because there's an obligation to do so, just because we think it's the right thing to do. And we got the vibe that was what we needed to do. So I think it's about listening and working together to share something that is quite special, and that's what you can achieve between the two. There's always going to be frictions. We come here from totally different perspectives, and some things that we think are completely the right thing to do, our public sector partners might be like, why on earth would you want to do that? So, but I think clashes of styles and cultures is absolutely what we need to make change happen, because otherwise everyone gets a bit safe and you'll always just do what you've always done, right?
Absolutely. You need to get on your metaphoric swing and think differently about things. Thank you for getting me on a swing for the first time in ages. Where can people find out about what you do?
It's youandiplc.com, or you can follow us on Instagram. It's just youandiplc.
Constructive Voices, the podcast for the construction people.
Hi, I'm Tom Larson from Stanhope, Design Director. We're a urban regeneration specialist focusing on dealing with sites that have a great deal of complexity to them to try and unlock value for our clients, ourselves, and for society.
Great stuff. So I heard some of the talk that you were involved in there, and it was about the repurposing of building, which obviously has huge advantages in terms of the massive amount of reduction in the carbon emissions. So do you want to develop that subject just a little bit further and maybe touch on a couple of the points that you went through there?
Yeah, sure. So we've got some great buildings in the UK and in our cities, and we should look to reuse that stock where we can and where it's practical to do so. But it's never a one-size-fits-all solution. I think the idea that there's an absolute requirement to retain buildings isn't quite right. It's much more nuanced than that around site specifics, the specific requirements of the market, and the condition of the buildings. Because, if you look back over history, a building built in the 1920s was designed to different technologies, different cultural and technological requirements of the time, compared to, say, a building in the 1950s or a building we do today. and some are easier than others to reuse, whether that's the logic of the structure, the level of kind of flamboyance in the architecture, or a number of other factors. So yeah, it's a nuanced one.
Absolutely. And just a little bit about Stanhope, the business itself. Any exciting projects that you want to discuss, and just a general overview of what you do on a day-to-day basis?
Yes. So it's a really exciting time for us at Stanhope. Obviously, the world is going through a massive amount of change at the moment, with changes in technology coming out of the pandemic, new ways of living, working, and that makes our job more interesting, because what we try to do is to take complex problems and translate those into solutions that we build through our places and our buildings. So actually the volatility and the change that's happening in the world at the moment, it makes things more interesting for us.
Yeah, without the shadow of a doubt. I've seen it myself. I'm a main contractor as well, and the transition in terms of materials that are being used, the types of construction that are now being used are different to what they were. So with that, it's exciting, and it certainly makes our jobs interesting, but it creates new challenges. And obviously the focus of the event that we're at here today, and the focus within construction, is certainly turning towards the climate emergency and reducing the carbon emissions. How have you found that within your own business, that transition? And I suppose, are you seeing enough of a drive within the industry?
I think the pace of change in society, well, particularly obviously in the UK and Europe, towards a greater awareness for the climate emergency and the actions that kind of need to be taken at all levels to sort of improve things over the next decades is amazing. That pace of change, and events such as this are kind of testament to that. With that challenge comes new opportunity, and we're enjoying trying to be at the forefront of how urban developers kind of address the needs of their customers and their investors, but also minimise our footprint and our impact. And obviously that impact being the embodied energy within the buildings that we create, but also the operational energy of those buildings when they're in operation. So it's a fascinating challenge, and one that the more you look at, the more kind of interesting and nuanced it gets, but one we're really enjoying tackling.
Great stuff. So final question, because I know you're a busy man. What has it been like to be at an event like Footprint Plus, and to kind of get to meet and greet and see so many of your industry peers? And have you been able to collaborate with a couple of people, and have you enjoyed that whole process of being here?
Yeah, it's great. It's a great event, and it's always nice to be by the seaside in the sun. And with like-minded people. The industry is driven by the people who are in it, and the more people from across the spectrum, whether that's from government, local council, investors, developers and consultants and contractors that can get involved and share ideas, the better, because this isn't a subject that can be tackled by any of those in silos. It has to be something that benefits from communication, collaboration, and events such as this are really good kind of platforms for that.
Great stuff. Listen, thank you very much for your time, Tom. Enjoy the rest of your day.
No problem. Thank you.
From the Footprint Plus event in Brighton, UK, to the global construction industry.
This is Constructive Voices.
My name's Vicky Slade. My role is the Director of Strategic Advice on Sustainability. So I work a lot with local authorities who are working through their climate emergency, but also with the private clients, so whether they be developers, planners, architects, who are looking to try and engage with local authorities, get those contracts, but understand what local authorities are looking for to help achieve their climate goals. The range between one council's idea of what is net zero and another is massive. So there's a big education piece to do, and a lot around matching up the right sort of organisations to work with the right sort of councils.
Very good, because working in the private sector and then working with councils can be a completely different game field altogether. So obviously you must have a lot of experience in dealing with various different councils, and I suppose if anyone is listening here today, what is it that you can bring to a situation to help progress maybe an introduction and a development within this situation?
So the getting into a council and through a council and navigating that even the language and the processes is really quite complex. The incredible thing about Kratos as a company is it's people. I'm personally a former council leader. A lot of our associates and our directors are either former chief execs, cabinet members, leaders of councils, either carrying on in that role on a part-time basis, or have been recently involved in it. So we've got the access to be able to build a relationship. It's not a case of getting in once and just sort of closing a deal. It's about building a relationship and understanding how a local authority works and operates, what they're looking for. And over the years of providing that public affairs support and those internal sort of conversations, we're able to open doors in a way that perhaps can sometimes be quite difficult to shove.
Very good. Being at an event like Footprint Plus, one thing that I've certainly noticed is that there's people from all areas of construction, all aspects of construction, professionals, developers, finance, insurance, local authorities. There's just so many people coming together into one place. And like, what are the positives that you can see out of that happening together under one roof?
So this conference is quite different from others that we've attended. This is very much it's got a lot of technical sort of involvement. There seems to be lots of really, really engaged people who are just really trying to make a difference and move the whole agenda on. And hopefully we've got a part to play in the sort of how do you build those relationships that perhaps people are head down, doing their technical work, creating the stuff, but actually it's how do you bring those people together, and that's where I think we've got a story to tell. It's a fabulous location, being down here in Brighton. It's where else would you want to be? And I think that the organisers have done a really good job with their first conference like this. So hopefully we'll be back next year, involved in an even bigger way.
Excellent stuff. And in terms of the sustainability issue in general and the drive towards net zero, events like this certainly are what I would probably call motivators, or they help push issues along the road. How do you think we're doing along this road? We have some work done. We've obviously got more work to do. Is it a positive from your point of view, and where do you see the next years going?
I think a lot of the issues is hearts and minds. There's still a lot of people out there who either believe the problem is too big for it to be worth bothering with, or not relevant to them. And I think in some respects, some of the issues around sustainability have got to hit people hard in order for them to wake up. It's brilliant to see so many organisations here who are trying to do the right thing, and listening to some of the debates and some of the presentations. It's clear there's some very innovative stuff happening. So I think the answer is to keep your eyes and ears open. I mean, as a company, we've just sent the Bill Gates book, How to Avoid a Climate Disaster, to every council in the country. Sent it to the leader, asked them to read it, asked them to share it, because we don't believe that enough people in local government actually understand. And because they don't understand, they don't want to say they don't understand, they don't learn. So that book's hopefully going to open their eyes a little bit so that they'll ask for help. And there are so many organisations here that can be part of that solution.
This is Constructive Voices.
And that's all for this episode of Constructive Voices. Please take a moment to share it with others who may find it interesting. Follow or subscribe to get the latest episodes automatically on your favourite podcast app, and rate and review the podcast if you can. You can also listen to the latest episode by saying, Alexa, play Constructive Voices podcast.
Here's Constructive Voices. Here's the latest episode.
And on our website, where there's lots more information too. That's constructive-voices.com. Don't forget the dash. Until next time, thanks for listening. You're really helping us build something.